If you would have told me a couple of years ago that a drone that fits in my backpack was capable of producing this, I would have called you crazy, but now that the Mavic 3 has been out for a while, it's time for a long-term review. And we're gonna jump straight into it, starting with image quality. The 4/3 inch sensor out of this drone gives you some fantastic 5.1K up to 50 frames a second footage, especially when you shoot in the D-Log 10-bit color profile, which means you get a huge amount of room to be able to color grade this footage in post. But not only that, it also gives you a lot of dynamic range out of a drone this size, which again just gives you a lot more room to be able to work with the footage in post and make the footage look the way you want it to look. Of course, the Cine model has ProRes, which gives you a whole nother level of ability to edit and color grade, but the footage that comes straight out of this drone, even the standard version, and even honestly in normal color profile, is absolutely fantastic and really great to work with when you're trying to match it up with other cameras. In fact, I've used this drone to shoot entire seasons of TV shows and a couple of movies, and nobody has complained about the footage quality that this drone has produced. But another thing that makes this drone really great for me is the 4K 120. Now, that's not something you want to film everything in, but if you have a subject that is really fast moving or ordinarily fast moving, like waterfalls, helicopters, anything like that, that ordinarily is much faster than that, being able to shoot it and film it in 4K 120 means that you get this really beautiful, dreamy, smooth, fantastic looking footage that's slow motion, which really gives you a lot of options for how you want to capture and film the subject material that you're capturing filming. And except for the Mavic 3 Classic, which I think is a great drone, the Mavic 3 and the Mavic 3 Cine have the Telephoto camera, which means you get a 7x or 161, 162 millimeter camera, which is really different and really unique. At first I didn't like it, but then when DJI gave us the manual mode to be able to control all the settings of this camera, I have fallen in love with this camera and love the types of shots that you are able to compose with it and get with it. Now the footage is still not the best, it's not the greatest. I wish that they would give us at least a D-Cine-like color profile so we could push it and utilize it a little more in post. But that being said, I do use this camera way more than I ever thought I would because it just allows me to compose and get a feeling from the shot that you're not able to get with any other drone on the market that I'm aware of currently. And one of my favorite things that DJI gave us a few months ago is night mode out of this drone, which means you can go shoot in incredibly low light. And yes, aside from filming in cities and other things that I was doing to test out low light, I was able to go out and even film the aurora. Now, the aurora is really hard to film, no matter what kind of camera you're using, but the fact that I was able to capture it at all on a drone that fits in my backpack is really saying something. Although I have to say, the best results I got were using hyperlapse mode to be able to capture the aurora and then put them together in hyperlapses. And that leads us into the photo quality coming out of this, because the way I shoot hyperlapses is going and filming or shooting the hyperlapses and then taking all the raw photos and editing them, then putting them together in my editor. And the photos coming out of this are absolutely fantastic. They're 20 megapixels, so it'd be nice to have a little higher megapixels, but 20 is great, and they do have a lot of dynamic range. It gives you a lot of room to be able to edit them in post. And in fact, I've even filmed or taken photos of the stars with this drone, which I never thought would be possible. Now, they're not the best, and it's not something I would do a lot of, but the fact that it can capture stars at all is pretty dang impressive. And before we get to some of the other creators and their thoughts about long-term use of the Mavic 3, I've got to talk about the durability. I have used this drone in all kinds of situations and all kinds of conditions. I even used it to film a documentary going up to the North Slope of Alaska in February, in the dead of winter, which is like the coldest possible time to go up there. And I flew this drone at 55 below zero in 35 to 36 mile an hour winds. And the drone handled it fine. Now, yes, my battery life, my flight time was shortened, but the fact that it even flew at all in those temperatures for any length of time is really incredible and a testament to how durable this is. I've also flown it in some incredibly heavy snow, and the drone has handled it just fine. Now, there are precautions you can take, and I do have videos about how to fly drones in the winter on my channel, but the fact that this drone has handled any of that, those types of conditions, and still going strong is really a testament to how well this drone was designed and how well it has been built. And sort of related to that, but the battery life out of this, while DJI says 46 minutes, I typically see around 30 to 35 minutes, depending on how I'm flying. The more sport mode I fly in, which I do a lot, the less time you get, obviously, but the drone does have incredibly good flight time and gives you a ton of time to be able to compose and capture footage and capture shots. And also, the max speed being 46 to 47 miles an hour, depending on conditions, really gives you a lot of ability to do way more than you could with drones like this before, because I'm actually able to somewhat track with a car, say like this, my car, driving down the road. Now, I may not be driving 70 or 80 miles an hour, but being able to keep up with cars at all and actually get some usable footage while they're going 55, 60 miles an hour is really, really excellent. And also, because it has such a high top speed, it means I can get the drone into position much faster and ready to film much quicker. But you don't have to just take my word for it. I've asked a few other creators to give you their thoughts and opinions on the Mavic 3 since it was released. And we're going to start off with JevenDovey.
The Mavic 3 is a perfect tool for storytelling. And the reason I say that is the amount of flexibility you have in this drone, and the fact that you can use it in so many different scenarios and be able to use it to basically capture anything you need from a drone. The main camera is obviously great, but that secondary camera, even though it's not the best camera, gives you such a unique perspective that you really can't get on other drones. And personally, I like the ability to have both cameras in this one drone. And for me, doing outdoor and adventure videos, it's nice to be able to have this drone that's small and compact that fits in your backpack alongside all of the other gear. Overall, it's just a solid drone, whether I'm using it for my YouTube videos or I'm using it for some of my client work.
Thanks, Jeven. Next up, we've got Aldrin Estacio from FlytPath.
Kind of hard to believe that the DJI Mavic 3 and the Mavic 3 Cine have been out for almost like a year and a half now. Now, my thoughts on the Mavic 3 since they released and since I came out with my review video are still really, really positive with this drone. I am glad, of course, that DJI kind of caught up with the firmware. When this thing first released, they were missing a bunch of functions that did take them a few months to get updated. The Mavic 3 seemed to be one of the ones that took a little bit longer than some of their other drones, but nonetheless, it is on there. A lot of the features are now on there that people expected, and this is still my go-to drone whenever I have the space, the time to get the Mavic 3 up in the air. Now for me, because of the fact I normally am a photography first flyer because I like to do large format prints, I like to opt for the biggest and highest quality camera, and right now, as far as portability wise, that's what we have here on the Mavic 3. Now for the majority of people out there that do not do large format prints, the Mini lineup, the Mini 3, the Air 2S lineup is going to be more than enough for all those flyers. But I'm happy that DJI came out with the Mavic 3 Classic just because it gives a lot of people more opportunity to get into this higher quality camera at a more affordable price. But overall, with all the updates on it, super happy with the Mavic 3 and what comes out of this camera. Kind of curious what DJI is going to come up with now for the next round, the DJI Mavic 4.
Thank you, Aldrin. Now, we're going to go to Russ from 51 Drones.
So I'm not sure if I can pack in all of my thoughts about the Mavic 3 to 60 seconds or less, but I'll do my best, Jake. There's one word that I regularly use to describe the Mavic 3 after using it for nearly a year and a half, and it's dependable. Never has a drone given me more confidence in getting the shot, nailing the colors, keeping it steady, navigating safely, and flying well beyond any amount of time that I actually need it to. For the prosumer, it's the only drone that I would consider right now because of the quality of content that it produces with hardly any work required for the pilot. The firmware upgrades continue to make it better and better, and with the recent addition of waypoints, I can create so much more dynamic content that really impresses my clients. There was this realtor one time when he saw me take my Mavic 3 out of the case, and it was the first job that I had done for him. He looked at it and he's like, "That's it? Something that small can take professional looking photos?" I was thinking you had something in the back of your truck, like the size of a suitcase. And then a couple days later, when I submitted the images to him, he was like amazed. He no longer questioned the abilities of this compact little workhorse. And now he calls me for nearly every aerial project that he needs. The Mavic 3 is the ultimate tool for anyone that wants to begin a career in aerial content creation. And if you're considering it, but are maybe looking at some less expensive options, just know that this drone will be the best of the best for years yet to come, and your investment will pay off in no time.
Thanks a lot, Russ. Next up, we've got none other than Billy Kyle.
So over the past year, I've made it a point to travel more, and every time I go somewhere, I of course like to bring my drone with me and capture as much aerial photos and videos as possible. So last year in 2022, when I sat down to kind of create my drone reel for the year, all of my best clips from all the places I traveled, I noticed that basically every single shot that was going into my video was captured on the Mavic 3. Now this is no coincidence. This is because the Mavic 3 Classic, Mavic 3, and Mavic 3 Cine make up the best lineup of drones that you can purchase right now from an aerial photography and videography aspect. The airframe is super well built, it's very dependable, giving you great specs, a nice fast top speed, and an advertised 47 minutes of flight time. The camera, of course, is amazing, giving you tack-sharp images, a ton of dynamic range, and the colors are always on point. And it also packs a lot of great features inside of it, like Active Track 5.0, which allows the drone to track a moving subject and dodge obstacles on its own, and it's gotten so good over the years to the point where I'd say that it's now on Skydio's level of tracking. For me, the Mavic 3 has been an absolute workhorse. I bounce back and forth between the Mavic 3 Cine and the Mavic 3 Classic. In fact, my Mavic 3 Classic right now is like basically coated in a film of salt from the sea because I was chasing surfers over the weekend, but nonetheless, these two drones are my absolute go-to for any aerial photography or videography, whether it's for myself traveling or if it's for a client. So if you're looking for one of the best drones to purchase right now, I would look at the Mavic 3 Classic because this is a bargain of a deal at around $1,600 depending on which remote you want. It gets you in an awesome airframe with an awesome camera. Really is hard to beat right now.
Thanks a lot, Billy. And now we've got Mike from Drone Supremacy.
Hey everyone, this is Mike from Drone Supremacy, and thank you so much, Jake, for including me in your video. So I've always said that the Mavic 3 is my absolute favorite drone that I've ever used and I've ever owned, and that's still the case. Initially, when this drone was first announced, it lacked some features that we've seen previously on other DJI flagship drones, so I was kind of bummed out. But since then, a lot has happened and we've seen some major updates being added to the Mavic 3 lineup, which is great because those updates are not only available for the more expensive models such as the Mavic 3 and the Mavic 3 Cine, but also for the more affordable Mavic 3 Classic. So features such as waypoints, night mode, and all of these little tweaks that have been slowly but surely improving our general flying experience are definitely the way to go, and I'm so much happier flying this drone nowadays, and it's still rock solid as my #1 drone that I've ever flown.
I want to thank all those creators for giving you their thoughts. That takes a lot of time to put those videos together, and so I really appreciate it. I hope you appreciate it too. Then we come to the question of which model of the Mavic 3 should you purchase if you're going to buy one. Personally, for me, I own two. I own the Mavic 3 Standard and I own the Mavic 3 Cine. Most of my client work I do with the Cine because the ProRes is a much more acceptable format for most editing houses that I send the footage to. I use this for a lot of my backpacking adventures and a lot of my Alaska stuff because it's a little less expensive and the footage coming out of it is still fantastic. But if you're in the market and you don't quite want to spend the money for the Mavic 3 Standard, then I would get the Classic because you still get the same fantastic image quality out of the main sensor. And really the only thing that you're missing is the telephoto camera, which if you don't use it a lot or if you don't think you're going to use it a lot, you probably don't need it. In my case, I use it more than I thought, but I could definitely get away without using it. And on the controller side, if you're gonna buy a controller, I would definitely get this, the DJI RC, because it's so much nicer having a screen built in, not having to mess with your phone, and I found that the battery life on this actually lasts quite a while. And in fact, I've gotten so spoiled by the image quality and the flight time and the capability coming out of the Mavic 3 that I've pretty much gotten rid of all of my other drones and I don't use any of the ones that I still have. The Mavic 3 has become the drone that I take with me everywhere for everything that I do, whether it's for YouTube, for me personally, or for clients. It's just absolutely a fantastic drone that performs way above its weight class in drones. But you're gonna wanna watch this video right here to see ways that you can improve your drone videos. As always, if you have questions, you can ask me in the comments below or join my live stream Wednesday nights at 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern, most of the time, unless I'm out doing something in the wilderness. I'll see you again soon in the next video. Cheers.